Hi there, it's Parmdeep Vadesha again, and welcome to the preview series for the Multiple Income Stream Super Conference that I'm going to be holding in June from the 5th to the 7th in London, 2009. So make sure you're there if you want to come and meet us and learn about all the strategies that I'm talking about on these videos. So even if you aren't coming to the Super Conference, make sure that you grab a pen and paper, and you'll get a lot more out of this video if you can take notes and learn as you go. Very quickly, I'll do my intro. I know I covered it in the first video, but I'll cover it again in case you didn't see it. I started in property 8 years ago, buying cheap below market value properties from distressed sellers, using a very early version of a system that I called the Tycoon Method system. The Tycoon Method has two parts to it. One is creating income from property, and the other is creating income from online businesses. And I've done both, and very quickly the system allowed me to get out of my job and invest full time. And because of my success from this model, lots of people asked me to share it and help them, so I wrote books and I've done workshops and things over the years. And it was only last year, 2008, that I shared the property part of the Tycoon Method system, and that was during a program that I called the Tycoon Mastermind Alliance coaching program. And it might help if you see some of the results that I helped my members achieve, only because the same strategies that I taught them are what I'm going to be covering in this series of videos. So if you have a look at the results there, I won't go through them individually, but you can just see they each paid me £5,500, and you can see each and every single one of them made over 20 times their investment in just 10 months. So you can see there, Charlotte from Manchester, Dr. Salim, Nabila, here's a few more, Maksum, Glenn, Peter, Sue, each of them turned 5,500 into 20 times initial investment. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because they use the same strategies that I'm going to be teaching you in this preview series of videos for the Multiple Income Stream Super Conference. So if you watch the videos and if you're coming to the June Super Conference, you'll be able to learn the same strategies for a fraction of the price of what I charged them. So they paid 5,500. If you come along to the June conference, you're paying less than 10% of what they paid for the same strategies. And you'll also get to meet the Tycoon Mastermind Alliance members as well, and actually meet them and see how they did it. But enough about that. Let's talk about the second strategy that I want to share with you. Second income strategy that I want to share with you is commercial property. Now, many residential property investors, they're just not interested in commercial property because they don't think it really applies to them. Well, I'll tell you something. Anybody who's been in residential for a while, very often, I've seen in most cases, ends up in commercial property after a period of time. And there's many types of different commercial properties that you can be buying. I've listed some of them here. So you've got shops, you've got warehouses, you've got factories, you've got garages. Basically anything that's not residential will probably be classed as commercial property. And the reason why it's such an attractive strategy is because we're likely to hit rock bottom commercial property prices in the next year or two. So I reckon that will be end of year 2010, 2011. You should see them hit rock bottom, and that's going to be a fantastic time to buy. Okay, let's look at some of the advantages of commercial property. First of all, it's a fantastic long-term investment. Most people who are buying commercial properties are buying them for a very long investment time horizon, and they tend to hold them for a very long time. And that's really when the benefits accrue through two things. One is the income that you get from the property, and the other is the capital growth that you see. The second thing that is worth noting as an advantage is it's easier to get rid of bad tenants with commercial properties. Did you know that if somebody doesn't pay the rent, you can go in there within 14 days and change the locks? And that's something that somebody very experienced in commercial told me. Obviously it's something you need to check for yourself, but I thought it was pretty good. Far less management issues, which is another advantage because the maintenance and upkeep and insurance of the property is the responsibility of the tenant and not you. Did you know that you can place commercial property into a pension? And I've got my own self-invested personal pension, a SIPP, and I'll be buying my commercial properties through there. Commercial finance can be structured creatively, which you can't do very easily with buy-to-let or residential. And also, I've mentioned at the bottom, FRI leases, which is basically a full repairing and insurance lease, as mentioned that before, where the tenant is responsible for that sort of thing. There are some disadvantages, which I thought I'd better note. You should take note of these. It can take much longer to let a commercial property once it's empty, and the reason for that is quite simple. If you've got a commercial property and it's a big warehouse or something like that, there aren't that many people in your town who want a 50,000 square foot warehouse. But if you've got a 2-bed terrace, there are probably 1,000 people who might want that. So it all goes down to the number of people who would want that property. So once it's empty, the value will drop because the income has gone, So you need to be aware of that. Now, if you're coming to the super conference in June, we'll teach you how to get around all these disadvantages. But for now, I just want to help you, make you aware of them so that you know what you need to be looking for. Valuations can be a lot more complex than residential. So for example, with a commercial property, it depends on what side of the street it's on, depends on whether it has parking or not, it depends on the size, it depends on who's nearby, it depends on the amount of traffic driving by, it can depend on the footfall, which is the number of people walking by. There's many different things which affect the valuation, so it's definitely more complex. But then again, if you can figure it out, it's a great advantage to have over residential property owners. You do need to put more cash down up front, and I'll cover that in a second. And it can be difficult to understand commercial properties if you're new to properties. But then again, like I said, once you get into commercial and you understand it, then it definitely gives you an edge over residential. And the other thing is values are linked to the health of the economy. So when the economy is doing very well, commercial property tends to do well. And when it's doing badly, it doesn't. So that's why it's a great time to buy just after the market's bottomed out, because the economy will then start to go back up again. Lots and lots of strategies people are using. The first one is, as I'm sure you've seen, converting redundant space upstairs into living accommodation, residential accommodation, which does have tax advantages, so it's worth looking into those. Leasing large spaces and splitting them up into smaller units and subleasing them. That's a great way of earning a cash flow from property you don't even own. But make sure that you're looking for opportunities in commercial to increase the income, because it's all about income in commercial. And also look for other opportunities to add value in terms of extending the property or changing its use or selling off bits of the land and that sort of thing. SIPP, as I mentioned before, this is what I will be doing when I start buying commercial again, as soon as we hit the bottom. Lots of people actually do this, buying through a SIPP. Now the advanced strategy is actually something that a lot of people do again, is renting the property that's held in the SIPP back to their own limited company. And that's a very tax efficient way of doing things, and something you should check with your accountant. Financing commercial properties, the more experienced you are, the more the banks will lend you, quite simply. I know several people who can get 90% plus on commercial properties because they know what they're doing, and the banks are very willing to get behind them. But generally speaking, for ordinary people who are just getting started, expect to put down at least 25% as a deposit. As I mentioned before, valuations are based on many different things. The first thing I'd recommend if you're going to be going into this is pay for a very experienced commercial property lawyer, because each lease is different and each deal is different. You need to have somebody pay more and get somebody who knows what they're talking about. That's one area you don't want to skimp on with commercial. Learn about the local area, what's coming up, are there any roads being planned, planning permission, are there any CPOs, which is a compulsory purchase order, affecting any nearby properties. Really make sure you know what's happening in the local area. Get a property that's in a prominent position, and make sure that if it does become empty, you can relet that property. Now, don't forget, if you're coming to June, you can learn the commercial property strategy for a tiny fraction of what my Tycoon Mastermind Alliance members pay to learn the strategies that I'm going to be talking about in these preview series of videos. You'll also get to meet all my Tycoon Mastermind Alliance members and meet them. And most importantly, I'm going to teach you how to become somebody who profits from this recession rather than becoming a victim, which is what I think many people are going to end up becoming if they're not careful. Don't forget my guarantee if you're coming in June, which is 60 days or less after the conference. You should be making £1,000 a week, and if you're not, I'll give you money back. So very strong guarantee, and because I know I can do it. If you look at the results that I've achieved with my Tycoon Mastermind Alliance members. If you book early, which is in the next few days, make sure you book, because then you get £1,500 worth of bonus gifts, including an extra day with me, learning how to set up your own